Now, given that Indiana Jones 5, The Dial of Destiny, is under 30 days away from its release, once it actually debuted at the Cannes Film Festival not so long ago, we saw all the critics coming out talking very low about the movie, saying how the magic is missing and that the thrill is non-existent. It really wasn't a good first sign, and it was really spelling itself as a red flag among the critics coming out of that film festival firsthand that really got Kathleen Kennedy worried, that got James Mangold a little bit frazzled about the entire situation, as well as actor Harrison Ford. This is a very big subject that we're going to be talking about today, and why he himself is disgusted with the ending of Indy 5 specifically. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new, and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and without further ado, let's get right into the subject. Now, we know that Harrison Ford really was somebody that was very much reluctant on whether or not he even wanted to come back for the Indiana Jones franchise, let alone the Star Wars universe. It took a lot of arm twisting to even get him back for The Rise of Skywalker as that cameo, let alone Indy 5. Now, in this particular film, we know that James Mangold and Kathleen Kennedy had a lot of creative differences, not a big surprise there. But what's interesting and quite concerning has a lot to do with how Harrison Ford himself, the star of the movie, is actually quite disgusted and livid with the ending of Indiana Jones 5. Very similar to how George Lucas himself did not approve of the final editing of course, the ending of Indy 5 and what's being chosen for what's going to be shown on screen. Now, with Indy 5, The Dial of Destiny going through the last phase of editing right now, one big development about the final ending of the 5th Indiana Jones film is that even actor Harrison Ford is disgusted with the ending of this movie that serves as the conclusion of Indy's adventures. The main reasoning behind why Ford is livid with the final ending and the choice is that Lucasfilm had initially promised Ford that they were settled on one of the 4 endings shot, in which Indiana Jones was going to meet up with a surprise cameo toward the end of the film. It's currently unclear who the cameo was going to be, but they both step into a biplane of some kind and literally fly off into the sunset. However, that ending with the special cameo was completely scrapped and deleted by Kathleen Kennedy at last minute for the ending to focus on both Indy and Helena instead, and that the current scene favors Helena with a specific piece of controversial dialogue that is going to leave fans quite annoyed and leaving them with a nuisance over the character. Ford reportedly got very frustrated with Kathy's last-minute decision to revolve the ending around Helena more than Indy himself, and that even George Lucas did not approve of this sequence. Now, let me stop right here for a sec. Now, the initial ending sounds more like a proper send-off, while also giving fans a very big surprise. We were supposed to have this special cameo at the very end of Indy 5, where we're not quite sure, by the way, like I stated before, whether or not this cameo was related to one of the characters from, let's say, for example, The Last Crusade, or the Temple of Doom, or Raiders of the Lost Ark. We're not quite sure. But it was said to be a cameo of importance where he or she steps into the biplane with Indiana Jones and they fly off into the sunset. So basically, the original idea was to create a literal flying off / walking into the sunset type ending to send off Indiana Jones properly. That was all scrapped and deleted by Kathleen Kennedy, not a big surprise at all. Ford is extremely disgusted about this situation and the choice of going with the ending where it focuses on Helena and what is best described as cringeworthy dialogue that has been thrown into the final touches of this ending of The Dial of Destiny. Now look, when you look at someone like Phoebe Waller-Bridge, alright, who plays Helena, the goddaughter of Indiana Jones. Kathleen Kennedy has said that she's the star of the show. She teaches Indiana in this movie. Or other things that Kathy talked about how Helena is somebody who teaches Indiana a proper lesson in these new times. Alright, I'm not going to go into spoilers so much, but that's basically what they touched on there. But what's interesting about this is, why would they delete such a beautifully shot scene that would have been a literal send-off for the character is beyond me. Now, James Mangold also tried to fight over the previous ending to stay in the final edit by Kennedy refusing, and felt it was not honoring the new characters. The final ending is reportedly so bad that Ford was trying to even convince Kathy personally to use the original one that they had shot. Even recently, James Mangold stated in an interview that Ford didn't really approve of the ending that they chose and that he didn't seem too enthusiastic. He made a joke about it, of how it reminded him of how Mark Hamill didn't approve of Rian Johnson's cameo or role as Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi, and laughed it off. It's kind of funny how Mangold considers Luke a cameo, but whatever. Ford is said to be a very worried person about this movie, however is going all in as Red Hulk for the MCU to be in his final send-off as an actor is his plan. So, it sounds like from what it really appears that Ford is planning to retire after his debut as Red Hulk in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think that's a more proper way to end your career. That's going to be a very big film. I think it's going to be a great film for him. It's going to take a lot of time. We're not going to see this for a while. But about Indy 5's ending, there were 4 shot to be specific, one of which had a lot to do with time travel. The one we just spoke of was the literal send-off into the sunset. This one focuses on Helena and Indiana Jones, and the 4th one is a mystery. We're not quite sure about what that one is just yet. But what's interesting about this is the fact that even James Mangold said that he compared this to how Mark Hamill didn't really approve of Rian Johnson's take on Luke in The Last Jedi, and how he kind of laughed it off as a joke. I'm not quite sure if that's the right thing to say at this point in time. If anything, that's going to make fans very and extremely worried about how Ford is being used in of course, the final episode or the final chapter in Indiana Jones' life. I think it's going to be interesting, to say the least, to see what the fan reaction is going to be like to Indy 5. It's very similar to what happened with his ending in Episode 9. A lot of fans didn't really approve of the fact that Han Solo was killed off in Episode 7, and then he only came back as a cameo just for the sake of doing it for a quick buck, for appearing as a vision. A lot of fans didn't really approve of that. I, however, thought it was a beautifully shot scene. It was a great, send-off and a way for Ben Solo to turn to the light. But I digress. The thing about this that is very concerning is how Indiana Jones 5 had 4 shot endings, one of which that they are choosing now for the final edit has a lot to do with Helena's dialogue that is cringeworthy and that is going to come across as just very, very annoying to the fan base, where it's just going to kind of really ruin the whole thing, so to speak. So I would really like to hear what you guys have to say about Mangold's comments about Harrison Ford and his feelings behind the scenes, behind closed doors about this ending, and how far he really went to really make this, or attempt to make this happen, to keep the original one. And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again.